Begin the current Dav Mesechtes Megillah Dav Chaf. Begin 11 lines down at the top of the Amid. We're continuing to explain how halacha of the previous Mishnah, which was discussing who is kosher to read the Megillah. We discussed that of the cotton. Shis corresponds to the Kazik and the Cheskel to anything Dav Chaim. Pretty much joining for today's Dav. So things we're going to discuss in today's Dav are Davish Mitzvahs B'Yoyim Kosher Kol Hayom. Davish Mitzvahs B'Layla is Kosher Kol Hayom. The daytime mitzvahs are valid anytime during the day, and nighttime mitzvahs are valid anytime during the night. Furthermore, if you did it even before nets, if you did it already from a Murashachar, it's going to be kosher even before sunrise as long as after daybreak. Mishnah discusses many individual mitzvahs, including Karnas and Megillah, reading the Megillah, Malin, the mitzvah Bris Milah, Tefillah Vazah, the immersion and sprinkling of the chatas for someone that's tamei, Vidui, various confessions, and Avodah, various Avodas of Kabbalah as they relate to being done during the daytime or during that of the nighttime. So we begin Daf Chaf, 11 lines down at the top of the Amid, where our Gemara quotes from the Mishnah. Although the Tanakama said that everyone's kosher to read the Megillah except for a cherish, a deaf person, a shait, a mentally deranged, and a cotton and a minor, Rabbi Yehuda machshav b'cotton. Now we had an attempt to say that it was actually all Rabbi Yehuda and it was share Rabbi Yehuda. I mean that there's two types of cotton. But be that as it may, Rabbi Yehuda says that it's going to be kosher with a minor, which we said a cut shegi lechinuch. He could go ahead and also read the Megillah. The Girsa is Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Rabbi Yehuda says, Katnagis, he says, yeah, I was a child, but could you see a Lamalam Reb Tarfin, there's a Kenny Balud, and there was all the Chashav Tzadikim, Reb Tarfin, the elders and Lord, and he says, I read the Megillah in front of them. They said to him, you who were a child, and you're testifying for something that you did as a child. But you cannot have, except a proof from a minor to say what he did when he was a child. Similarly, time to learn the Braisa with Rebbe. Rebbe says, he says, I was a child, but you can see Lamalam Rebbe Yehuda, and I read in front of Rebbe Yehuda. I said to him, we don't bring a proof from the permitter. You read in front of Rebbe Yehuda. He's the one that recorded in our Mishnah that permits a child. We're not going to bring a proof from him because that's exactly the point. The Rabbim disagree with that of Rebbe Yehuda, and they hold that a child is not valid. So the Gemara says, why did they say that to him? Why didn't they just tell Rebbe Imavin Raim that cotton? I'm just saying, you were a child when you did this. And we can't bring proof from something you're saying over that when you were a child. Why are you saying that because the one that you did it for is the matter? Says, well, you're right, no, Chadav Oid Karmeli, they told him one and another thing. Chadav, first of all, the cotton, you said you were a child, so you can't believe the testimony you're saying to something that was as a child. But Oid, moreover, even had you been an adult, in the matter, we don't bring a proof from the permitter, you did it in front of Yehuda, of course he's going to let you do it as a child, because that's his opinion, but the majority disagrees. So we continue with the halacha, the next Mishnah, continue regarding the Kriyas and Megillah, and once we do that, we mention other items that fit the bill for the categorization we're going to put it into. Says the Mishnah, Ein Kohenis Megillah. You don't read the Megillah, and now we mention other things that also share this characteristic. V'loy Malin, and we don't circumcise. V'loy Taivlin, which is a discussion, Rashi and Taisa exactly which one. Is it the tefillah of the Ezev? Is it the tefillah of the person? But Rashi says that when it reaches day 7, for a Zav and the Tmei Meis, the halacha is that they have to go out and immerse themselves. So we don't say that once it's already nighttime on the 7th day, okay, it's already day 7, and that the person is already fit to immerse themselves, even though in halacha, nighttime is the beginning of the daytime. No, here, all these halachas that we're discussing, which include Kriyas Megillah and the tefillah of the person who has a 7-day purification process, has to be during the daytime. Now, Rashi does point out, once that day 7 passes, then you could immerse in the nighttime, let's say in the night of the 9th day or the 10th day, whatever it is. And the Gemara is going to explain the source, how we know all these halachas have to be during the daytime. But all these things, you cannot do them. So too, and you cannot spray the mechatas, which are the paraduma ash waters. And a woman who she's during the 11 days of Ziva, which a woman's cycle is 7-11, which is 7 days of Nida and then 11 days of Ziva, which basically means to say we don't expect her to see Dam during those 11 days. We expect during her period, which would be a cycle of 18 days, we don't expect during those 11 days. If she sees 3 days consecutive, she becomes a Zava Gedaili, she has to bring a carbon. If she sees 2 days, she becomes a Zava. 1 day or 2 days, those 2 days, she's a Shemeres Yoim. Which means to say she only has to watch 1 day to make sure that she's not going to have Dam again. So she has to toivel the following day. So as we say, loy titvel, The Gemara is going to explain why we're picking a Shemeres Yom specifically. You already said that in Toivlin, that you can't do the tefillah of any purification at nighttime. It has to be during the daytime. Why we're picking specifically Shemeres Yom. But either that's all these halachas that we just said, you cannot do them at Shatan Netzachama until what we call Netzachama, until sunrise, which it's already out of the doubt of being nighttime anymore, because these things have to be during the daytime. But all these things, if you did them from the break of dawn, it's going to be valid. Because the truth is, like Rashi says, in halacha, Alaysa Shachar is already daytime. But since not everyone is so proficient and know exactly when Alaysa Shachar is, so we initially require you to wait till nets, till sunrise, then you know for sure it's daytime. But after the fact, we're done from Alaysa Shachar, all these things of Kriyas Megillah, Bris Milah, Tevila, Hazar Smechata, Shemeres Yom Kenegim for our Tefillah, they initially have to be done after Netzachah. So the Gemara goes through and explains each one of these things, first starting with the opening halacha, which is related to the topic of our Parakah Masechta. Minalan, where do we know that Kriyas and Megillah has to be during the daytime, which we said is after Netz? The Talmud Pas says in Megillah, it says, Vayamim ha'ela nizkarim menasim. These days are to be remembered and to be done. What's Hayamim? Vayamim b'layla. That should be during the daytime, not during the nighttime. Oh, says the Gemara, let's say this refutes B'Shuma Levi. Because Dami B'Shuma Levi says a famous halacha. He says, He says the person has to read the Megillah at nighttime and repeat it during the daytime. You see here, the Megillah is only during the daytime. Says the Gemara, no, Kikatani, when did we learn in our Mishnah that the Megillah has to be after Netzachama is at the Yom, is on the second Kriya. That was saying that has to be during the daytime. But there is another reading in the Megillah at nighttime. And that's how we do. Next halacha the Mishnah was v'loy malim b'chulu. Also, the circumcision of bris milah has to be during the daytime. Where do we know that? That's what it says in Pasuk Vayikra. It says u'bayom hashmini yimul. On the 8th day is when the bris milah is done. Which Taisa says really that's not the source. We have another pasuk, but a lot of times the Gemara likes bringing the drasha apshut to Yosef. Rambam does this. Oftentimes we find that the Gemara does this. It just brings a simpler interpretation. Now, Taisa says an interesting question. He says, it comes out, you tell me bris milah has to be only during the daytime. So that makes bris milah a mitzvah seishes man gudama. So why does the Gemara in Kedushin need oisai to exclude a woman that she doesn't have to circumcise her child? It's a mitzvah seishes man gudama. It's a time-bound commandment. Of course, the woman is not mechuyev in the time-bound commandment. Says Taisa, no, that if not for oisai, I would have thought to say that women are only exempt from mitzvah seishes man gudama that don't have karas. Like all the examples that are brought over there, matzah, simcha, hakel. But if it has karas, and here there's 13 braces that are with the bris milah, I would have thought that women would be mechuyev to circumcise their children. That a woman is not mechuyev to do the bris milah on her son. Another pshat Taisus brings is actually, we're talking about for milah shalei bezmana. Milah bezmana is supposed to be on day 8. But milah shalei bezmana, the Gemara tells us elsewhere it's noigim b'mayim b'malayla. We don't actually do it, but it's once the 8th day passed, then any time you have an opportunity to do the bris milah b'mayim b'malayla. So then it's not a mitzvah shezman geram anymore. That would be a woman should be mechuyev then. And they were saying that no, even for that, Isai excludes the woman that she wouldn't be mechuyev to do the bris milah on her children. But be that as may again, we see that milah is also has to be done during the daytime. We said ubayah. Next halachas of the Mishnah war, v'loy tayvlin. Neither could you do the tefillah. And v'loy mazin, neither do you do the spraying, and that's why it sounds like it's a little bit like Taisus wants to discuss of the Ezev, you dip it in and then you spray it. There's 2 tefillahs, whatever, but Akapanim, Rashi, and then there's another pshat in Taisus that it's talking about the person. When he does the tefillah, it has to be during the daytime. Says the Gemara, the Chsiv, how do we know this? It says the pasuk in the Midbar, it says, V'hiza hatar ala tamei b'goymer. Talks about when there's the purification of someone who became tamei from a dead person, what's called a tmei mace. The only way he could purify himself is a 7-day purification process, which day 3 and day 7 they get sprayed on with the ash waters of the paraduma. So it says that the Torah person will spray on the tamei by Yom Hashvi on the 7th day. So she has to be during the daytime. So that tells us hazah. Yeah, how do we know tevilah? Because ve'iskish tevilah hazah. The pasuk equates immersion with the spraying, because the end of the pasuk says v'rachatz b'mayim. He's going to wash himself in water, which is the tevilah. And we're comparing that to Vehiza, which says Bayim Shvi. So you see, it has to be specifically in the daytime. And Rashi says, and it's not just a halacha for Tmei Meis, it's going to be for a Zav and a Zava, that whatever Tefillah you have, we see that from the fact we compare it to that of Hazah, which it says Bayim Hashvi, has to be during the daytime, all Tefillahs all these tefillahs have to be during the daytime also. Now the Mishnah said, like we explained, that after the 7 days of the Nida, you come to these 11 days, which are called the days of Ziva, which if a woman saw 3 consecutive days, she becomes a Zava. She has to count what's called Shivin Nikiyim. Our women do Shivin Nikiyim, but biblically that's actually not an obligation. It's only if it's during the 11 days of Ziva. And then she has to count 7 days, like we said, and bring a carbon. If she saw 1 day, so then she has to count only the following day, and she could table on that day, which we learned from Sugma Teres Kainim. It's brought in the first sug in the last sugya Masechtas Nida. So that's what our Mishnah says. She also, when she has to the next day count and make sure she's not seeing any dam, and she tibbles that day, has to be after Netzacham. Says Pshita, obviously. Why are you differentiating in the Mishnah a bazundir halacha, separate a halacha category for Shemeres Yom? You told me Ochiyim v'Tevilas have to be during the daytime. So what's the chiddush? What are you saying? Says it was necessary. Why? So you would have thought to say that tahava, that this first discharge of Zava, meaning she only saw 1 discharge of Dam, so that should be Kiriyir Shal Zav. You would think the woman, now women and men, although they're called Zav and Zava, and they have similar type of categorizations, they're very different types of discharges. A man has his type of discharge, and the woman has Dam, as her discharge. So, but still, I would have thought to say that the first discharge of the woman for her Zava should be the same as the first discharge of the male, which is B'riyur Shal Zav. The first discharge that a man has is Iskish Labal Keri, is compared to that of a person who had a seminal emission. Where do we find this? The Pasuk in Yikr, it says Zois Toides Hazav. This is the halacha of the Zav, which it's saying only 1 time the terminology of Ziv over here, which that's the first discharge. And it says Vashatetzim in the Shech Vazer, and that if it comes out from him, his semen, which is about Keri. So you see, we're comparing, because sometimes there's other psukim that say the word Zav more than 1 time, and that tells us about Zav. That's how Shalishri is. There's different halachas. If a man sees 1 time, or he sees 2 times, or 3 times. But we have one pasuk that mentions only the term Zav 1 time, which means the first Re'iyah. And it mentions right together with the term of the Baal Keri. So what are we comparing? A Zav, it's different types of discharges, the Ziva discharge of a man, and the Keri. But it's comparing it to tell you, Ma Baal Keri Tev Bayoim, just like someone who has a seminal discharge. He immerses during the daytime. So and that's the same thing for the Zav. So I would have thought to say that the Zava Ketana, meaning a Baal Keri, that same day that he had the discharge, he could table, he'll be tar at that nighttime. And the Zav in his Riyushain is the same way. So I would have thought to say that the Zava Ketana, which is what the woman in her first discharge, that she could also be table in her that day that she had the discharge. That's what it would sound like if you're comparing the woman to the man. Now the problem is you can't say that, because she cannot table the day that she had during those 11 days of Ziva. She had a discharge that day to table that day, because the Chassid says a pasuk in Vayikra, it says Kol Yemei Zayva, all the days of her flow, which is where the word Ziva comes from. It's the term of flowing. Kimishkav Nidasa Yila, like the laying of her period of her nida, Yila should be for her. Now this pasuk is talking about when it's by the Re'iyah of a Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom. How do we know that? Actually, it tells us because we learned it out from Kol Yemei. We just quoted the pasuk says Kol Yemei Zayva. The Gemara needed that. I give them an alf. Learns out Kol Yemei comes to include also with the Shemeres Yom. Now the Gemara tells us over there that it says Yilah, right? We quoted the pasuk Kol Yemei Zayva, which includes Shemeres Yom. Is Kamishka Nidasa Yilah. What does it mean Yilah? Comes to teach that she has to count 1 day for the day that she had the discharge, which is a little bit of the next day. So I know that it's a little bit of a complicated cheshbon, but basically I know I would compare Zav to Zav, and Zav is compared to Baal Keri. Baal Keri could table that day, so Zav could also table that day. So I would tell you, okay, the woman, the female, male should be the same thing. She could also table that day, but she can't table that day because it's the pasuk that tells us Kol Yemei Zayva, which is talking about Shemeres Yom, Kimishkam Nidasa Yilah, that she has to have the same day that she had. She has to count an equivalent of a day of Tahara. So she can't tell what it is. It's got to be the next day. Okay, but what the Gemara wants to tell me, at least but at least let the nighttime of the next day be a partial shmira of safeguarding, making sure that she's not having any blood discharge, and then she could table at nighttime because it's already summer the next day, so it's like somewhere in the middle. Like really, I would say let her do it today, but no, the pasuk says you can't do it, you gotta do it tomorrow. Okay, but tomorrow would mean the next day, though. Otherwise, it's comparing to the man. So, okay, I would think at least let it be done at nighttime. It's already a little bit for the next day. Oh, Kamash Malam, that's why we need a special limud, separate categorical mentioning in the Mishnah of Shemeres Yom to tell you that no. Even the Bayis Svira, since the Shemeres Yom needs to count, as we continue with Bayis, meaning she doesn't have to count Shib and the Kiyim, 7 conditions, you gotta count one day. So then, Svira be Mamigi. Counting has to be during the daytime. Because since this is one day for one day, that's like a counting that's similar to the Shiv and the Kiyim, and every counting has to be during the daytime. As Rashi says, how do you know that? Because it says in the pasuk, "V'safra lo shivas yamim." She counts for her 7 days. You see that a svira has to be during the daytime, and that's how we know, and that's why we have to mention specifically Shemeres Yom that her tefillah has to be during the daytime, because ultimately it's a counting. Because without that, I maybe would have thought, yeah, let her table at nighttime, because the Ma'aseh Shei, at least somewhat similar to that of the man who could table even during the day itself that he had to discharge. She can't, it's going to be next day, can let it be at nighttime. I said, no, it says it's accounting has to be during the daytime. Now the Mishnah then said, okay, that was the list of all the things that we said that have to be during the daytime, and we said it should be after Netzach, after sunrise. Said the Mishnah, but all these things, if you did it after the break of dawn, okay, kosher, it's kosher. Because as Rashi explained, ultimately the day really does start at Alisa Shachar. We just don't know exactly, so we want to be machmir to make sure for sure, definitively, but after the fact you can be Yitzhak. Says where do we know this from? So I'm another because the Amakar the Pasuk says in Bereshis. It says V'yikra Elikim La'or Yod. God called to the light day. Now the word La'or, it could have just said V'yikra Elikim Or Yod. God called light day. What's La'or? So the Gemara explains, Lemeir uva. Le is like two. It's like it's not here yet. He called to the light day, which means Lemeir Bokorian. That which is coming towards the light is already daytime, meaning Aloisa Shachar, the sun didn't come yet. It's coming, you see it already, it's the break of dawn. So you see that the break of dawn is already day. What's Lemeir uva, what's La'ar is already considered Yod. The Gemara says, wait a second, that's the interpretation. What do you do with the next part of the pasuk? It says, V'lachosher kol halayla. It also says, it doesn't say V'chosher kol halayla, it says V'lachosher kol halayla. So are you going to tell me that means L'machshech bo kol halayla, that it's nighttime, even if it's not dark yet, it's like what's coming to be nighttime, is to be dark is already nighttime? But you can't say that. But we rule that up until the stars come out, it's not nighttime. You see, if it's not stars out, even if it's getting to be towards darkness, then it's not nighttime. But the way you're interpreting the pasuk, it should be already when you're getting towards there, it should be nighttime. Which Tosfos says that even though that we rule that Tzeiser Kachavim is nighttime, so then Tosfos bothered, we know the Sugya Masechtas Brachas, as Machlekes Rabbi Yisrael regarding Bein Hashmashas. What do you mean? Don't we see that only Tzeiser Kachavim is nighttime? So Tosfos says that actually, that even regarding Tzeiser Kachavim, you could have differences because there's stars that come out during the daytime. So Tzeiser Kachavim even itself is like not so pasha. But Al Kapanim, you can't interpret the pasuk the way you're saying it. That villa, when it says la'ar yain, like towards the light, and that's your source that Allah Shach is kasha, because it also says la'chayshach kalayla, and we know that towards darkness is not night; it has to be tzizik kachavim. So Elam Reb Zeh rather says you're right. I bring a different source for this halacha. Mehacha, it's a pasuk in the Tanakh. Pasuk says, "V'nachnu oisim b'malacha." Now we were busy doing the work, and the chetzim machzikim b'macham, half were holding onto the spears, and it was me'alisa shachar. It was from the break of dawn. Up until nighttime, until the stars came out. Like it says after that, it says, and the Ger says, that the night was for us as a safeguard. Now, but one thing you see that they were doing the work from Alisa Shachar until Tzeiser you see that daytime is from the break of dawn until stars come out. So the Gemara says, why do you need to bring another pasuk to say that the nighttime was for us as a mishmer, which you see that that's when they were not working, they were just safeguarding. So you see that if nighttime is, they were not working. If they were working from Alisa Shachar, obviously Alisa Shachar is daytime. Why do you need to do Ayra? Says Imam, no, because you could say that maybe from Alisa Shachar is not daytime. And also, actually, I could tell you maybe even when it's from already Harb Shemesh, when it's already by twilight, by Ben Hashmashes, by Shkia, that maybe that's already nighttime. You're going to tell me the pasuk says that they were working ready for Malais and they worked till Tzeis? They started working earlier and they ended later. They started before the day started and they ended after the day started. Oh no, Tashema, therefore we have to bring that no, the pasuk is clearly that the nighttime they didn't work and the daytime they did work. So obviously, as long as they were engaged in work, it's called daytime, and they didn't do it earlier or later. So you see clearly that from Ma'alei Shachar until Tzedek Chavim is what we consider to be daytime, and that's why all these things that need to be done during the daytime, B'di'evet, it was done. Ma'alei Shachar is going to be valid. Okay, so now that we defined again one of the items, and that's why we brought in the rest was Kriyas Megillah. We said that you could only start after Netz and B'di'evet after Alais. Now that's the earliest. How late can you do the Megillah? So that's the next Mishnah. Kol hayom kasher. The whole day is valid. Now, as Rashi points out, although we know there's a rule, the Gemara brings it Pesachim, Zrizim Magdim LaMitzvahs. Those who are diligent, they are quick to perform the mitzvahs, like it says, V'yashkem Avram Babayke, and Avram Avinu got up early in the morning. Even so, our Mishnah is saying it's kasher kol hayom. But yeah, definitely want to do it as early as possible in the morning. But the whole day is kasher L'kriyas HaMegillah, and that's why I bring in this Mishnah, because item number one is the topic of our Masechta, that you can read the Megillah all day. You create a Hallel, and you can say Hallel all day, L'tkiya Shayf, you can blow the Shayfar, and Rosh Hashanah all day, L'tkiya Lulav, and Pshaka Lulav and Sukkot, L'tkiya Musaf, if you don't want to daven Musaf, or the Musaf, and for the Karbanas Musaf, L'tkiya Parim, and regarding the confessions of the bulls, which one is this? So this is referring to the Parhelm Davar Shal Tzibur, which is when the whole Jewish people follow an erroneous ruling of the Sanhedrin, or Par Kohen Mashiach, which is when the Kohen Gadol made an error in Halacha, that they have to do a vidur, confession of their sin that they're bringing on it, as the Gemara says in Yom Daf Lamed Vav Beis, which we learn out that it means kaparas davar. It doesn't refer to the atonement of like the blood; it's referring to that of the confession. So this confession of the bull could be done the whole day. And Levi Meiser, when someone is doing bir Meiser, is getting rid of all his Meisers at the end of 3 years, he says a confession that also can be done all day. On Yom Kippurim when he's saying confession, that can be also all day. L'smicha, when you want to lean on your animal for a carbon, which is done right before the shechita, which is when you're doing the slaughtering, and also the slaughtering it can be all day. L'tzdufa, which is a certain process they would do by certain menachos when they would wave it, or lagasha to bring it near to the mizbeach, or la kamitza when they take the fistful of the flour which is going to be burnt in the mizbeach, laktava, the burning of that fistful, Lamalika, which is when they would take the bird karbanas, they would go ahead and Kohen would take his fingernail, and he would cut through the back of the neck. Again, all these things are kosher all day. The Kabbalah for the receiving of the blood of the carbon, the lazaya, and spraying of the blood, which the spraying of the param on the strafim, the chatayz apnimis, that is their zrika. Again, this could be all day. Lashka yasaita, the suspected adulterous woman has to drink the meisaita. That's also all day. Larifas eglo, decapitating of the calf when you find a dead person on the roads and you have to go to the closest city and they have to bring the egla rufa. L'taras mitzayra, and forgotten the purification of the mitzayra. Again, all these things are kosher all day long. Moreover, that was mitzvah shabbayeh. Now it says the Mishnah, kol halayla, the whole night, is kosher for the following things which are done at nighttime. L'ktziras ha'omer, for the harvesting of the omer, which the barley offering is done on the night of the 16th of Nisan, which actually Taisus brings a discussion that we see that Ketziras Omer has to be right away, the beginning of the Sfira, the night of the 16th of Nisan. It brings from in the Tam that if someone forgot to make a bracha on Ketziras Omer at nighttime, should not make a bracha during the daytime, like it sounds like over here from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah seems to say that this thing is kosher only at nighttime. Ketziras Omer, which is the source of Sfiras Omer. What is the Sfiras Omer of the barley offering, which you do with the Ketzira at nighttime? So although he says this is a Stam Mishnah Menachos that says that if it was Niktzah V'yim, it's kosher b'diavad, but the Stam Mishnah over here is better because here it's by what's called Hilchos Psikta, and therefore more what Taisus says that it seems Shana Lavakasa La'akim, the pasuk repeats it more than once to say Tamimis, and Tamimis would only be if you count at nighttime. And the Bahag writes that if someone forgot to make the bracha at nighttime, you should count tomorrow without a bracha, and that's the halacha. But if you got night and daytime, then you shouldn't count anymore with brachas because you need to have tamimas and you don't have that anymore. And moreover, Taisa says that after you make a bracha on the svira, you should say Yehiratzin Sheyabana Besamigi. We say this is Yehiratzin, which Taisa is interesting. Why don't we say this by Tafka? We say this. Everyone says this after the bracha. Why don't we say by Tekiyah Sheifa and Lulav? Why don't we say Yehiratzin Sheyabana Besamigdash? So he says the reason is because Sviras Aimer is only a recollection for the Binyan Besamigdash. We don't have the mitzvah Ketziras Aimer right now. So we say when we say the bracha on Sviras Aimer, we say Yehiratzin Sheyabana Besamigdash. We can do the actual thing. But Sheifer and Lulav, we have the actual mitzvah itself, so we don't say a special Yehiratzin Sheyabana Besamigdash. Al Kapan, our Mishnah says that Ketziras Aimer is kosher. It has to be at nighttime. It's kosher all nighttime. And Ulhektech Lav Mevarim. And for the burning of the fats and the limbs, which we know were done all night on the Mizbeach. Zakal, this is the rule. Something that the mitzvah is during the daytime, kosher kol hayom, is kosher all day. Something the mitzvah is nighttime, kosher kol halayla, is valid all nighttime. So I think Gemara goes through, again, starting from the first item, which is that of the topic of our Masechta Menalim. Where do we know the Megillah is kosher all day that you agree to Megillah? Because the Amakar, the Pasuk says, V'hayamim ha'elan is korim menasim. That these days are to be remembered and to be done, which is, and again, it says the days to say that it's kosher the whole day. The Kriyas Hal, where do we find Hal that it's, again, Be'etzim we're just showing you that it's a mitzvah hayayim, but it's also that it's kosher all day. Like, find the Kriyas Hal, that says the Pasuk, Mimizach Shemesh Ad Mavai. It says when the sun is rising till it sets. That's all day that you could say Hal. Yisem, he says, Zeh Yamas Hashem. This day Hashem made, which is also there in Hal, says this day, the whole day. But the Tilas Lulav, where do we find that? The Siva says in the Pasuk in Vayikra, L'kach L'chem B'yem Rishon, you should take it for yourself on the first day. The whole first day, you could shak a Lulav. In Tekiyah Sheifa, where do we find the blowing of the Sheifa? The Siva says the Pasuk in Midbar. It says Yom Teru Yilchem, a day of blast, it should be for you, which is the whole day, you can blow the Sheifa. Well, Musafa, where do we find that for the Karbanis Musaf, that it can be all day? The Siva says the Pasuk in Mikra, Devar Yom B'yemai, the thing of the day, in its day, which is the whole day you could bring the Musaf. Well, Tfilas Musaf, and how do you know you could daven Musaf all day? Musaf and Shabbat Rabban, because Rabbanan made the Tfilah Musaf like the Musaf itself, which it could be done all day. Well, the Vidim Param, how do we know that the confession of the bulls could be all day? Because the Yov, Kapar, Kaparim, Yom Kippurim, we learn out when it says atonement by the Vidim the Parim, when it says by Yom Kippurim. The Tanya, by Yom Kippurim, like with them, by Yom Kippurim, it says in the Pasuk, B'yikra B'chib B'bado B'ad Beisai, that the Kohen Gadol is going to atone for himself and for his family. Now, B'kapar is Dvar Makasim Daven. The pasuk there, when it talks about the Chipur on Yom Kippurim, that atonement is not an atonement of blood. It's an atonement of words, which is vidui. As the Gemara in Yuma Dav L'Mevav Beis concludes and says, really, is he talking about Kapar's Devar? Maybe it's Kapar's Damim. So the Gemara in Yuma says, but they know, because it says, V'chipur ba'adoi, this word, this pasuk that we're quoting. And then it says, V'shachar des parachat ashaloi. Obviously, it's not Kapar's Dam, because you didn't even shech the par yet even. Obviously, it's atonement because it's the atonement that you get just by the confession on the animal. Oh, and so we learn out where it says kapara by Yom Kippurim. It says kapara over there by the vidui of the param of the parham davashal tzibra and the parkoy Mashiach, and the kapara by Yamamahu. And the atonement by Yom Kippurim, that vidui is during the daytime. That's what it says in the Pasuk Ikra. By Yom Hazeh Yechap Aleichem, on this day, he's going to atone for you. So obviously we see that the kapara is by daytime, and therefore the same thing would apply for the parham davashal tzibra and the parkoy Mashiach, which that vidui of the param would also be during the whole day. And Levida Maisa, we said that the confession of the Maisis, when you're bringing all your Maisis, you didn't bring it in a while. After 3 years, you have to liquidate and bring it out. So you have to say a confession. That also is all day. How do we know that? That's what it says in the pasuk in the Vav. It says, "You can say in front of Hashem your God, I liquidated all the holy stuff from my house." And it says near there, this day Hashem your God commanded you. You see that this day, the whole day, is when you could say the vidoy of the Maisa. We said also l'smicha l'shchita. You could do the smicha leaning on the carbon and they're slaughtering it all day. How do we know this? So it says the Pasuk Yikra. It says v'samach v'shacha. Yet you will lean and it says you'll slaughter. So we're comparing the leaning to the shchita. Okay. So uksiv ba b'shchita. It says by shchita Yikra. It says by yom zevchachem, on the day that you slaughter. So you see, it's the whole day that you can slaughter, and the smicha therefore has the same halacha. That it's also going to be the same idea that you can do it all day. Well, it's nufa. This of the waving procedure. How do we know that's all day? The Chassidus says the Pasuk Yikra says, "But Yom Hanifchem Es Aimer." On the day that you wave the Aimer, again you see it's the whole day. Ulagasha. How do you know the bringing that near to the Mizbeach? That's also all day. The Ishkish LeTenufa, because it's compared to that of Tenufa, which we just said Tenufa is all day. Where do we find that Hagasha is compared to Tnufa? The Simba says the Pazim Amid, it says the Lokach HaKoyin. The Kohen is going to take Miyada Isha from the hand of the woman, as Minchas HaKanois. The jealous flower offering, which is the name of the Minchas Saita. The Heidif, and they're going to wave. The Hikriv. What's the Hikriv? The Hikriv over there, to bring near, means Hagasha, bringing it to the Mizbeach. Because as Rashi explains, you can't say the Hikriv means literally Hakrova, what we generally translate as sacrifice, which is the Haktara of the Kamitza, the burning of the fistful, because it says after that, V'kamat v'hikter, that he's going to take the fistful and burn it. So when it said previously, the Hikriv, it must mean the Hagasha. What is Hagasha? So Rashi tells us, is you bring the flower offering near to the southwestern corner of the Mizbeach, opposite the corner of the Mizbeach, and then you take the Kamitza. We learned it out from Psukim in Saitin Avidal Mabeis and Menachas Avitas Mabeis. So we see that Hagasha is being compared to Tenufa because it says Vehenif and then the Hikriv. And Tenufa, we said we know it the whole daytime. So to the Hikriv, which means Hagasha, is also all day. Now, how do you know the Malika, which is that unique shechita of the birds of Karbanis in the Beis Hamikdash, and the Kamitza taking the festival, Laktara, and the burning of the Kamitza, which is by the flower offering, which is the equivalent of the spraying of the blood of animal Karbanis, that it's only kosher during the daytime, because Rashi says, because when we say Haktara, it must mean that of the Kamitza, because the Hektar Chalam Ve'evarim, the burning, which is usually what you do with animal sacrifices, that the Mishnah actually told us is kosher all night time. So obviously if we're saying that these are to be done all daytime, this Haktara is referring to the Haktara of the Kamitza. That's burned during the daytime. It's like the equivalent of the Zrikas Adam of an animal. When you burn the Kamitza, is the same thing of an animal. There's no blood by a flower offering. It's the equivalent, and that has to be done during the daytime. So do this Haktara, because Haktara Chalam B'Vam is actually not during the daytime. It actually could be all night time. But how do we know the Malika and the Kamitza and the Haktara, Lazai and the spring of the blood, that there it's all daytime? So it says a Pazim Yikra. It says, B'nei Yisrael, on the day that he commanded the Jewish people, as Rashi brings the rest of the pasuk, lahakriv es karbanim, to sacrifice their karbanos. Now, all these things that we're mentioning of Malika, Kamitza, and Haktara, and Azaya, these are all hakravas hakarban. Because, for example, the Haktara, the Kaimet, is hakrava. The Kamitza is compared to Haktara, because it says v'kamatz v'hikter. The Malika of the Oif, the Malika and the Hazaya happens at the same time, and Hazaya is the hakrava. Now, according to the Girsa that some have of Kabbalah Saddam, Rashi says it's also considered hakrava, because the Gemara says Chagigi Davirav Manav. We learn it from the word Veikrivoi that refers to Kabbalah Saddam. Okay, so that's one interpretation how you see from this pasuk of B'yim Tzavos B'nei Yisrael, which it continues Lahakavas Karbanehem as a source for all these things that's B'yim all day, which includes Malika, Kamitza, Haktara, Azaya, maybe even Kabbalah. Or another interpretation, Rashi says, you learn it from Lahakriv, all necessities that are related to the Hakrava. Now, Kamitza, Malika, Kabbalah, they're all tzrachim of Hakrava, and because you can't do the avodah without them. But Hagasha, let's say, and Tenufa, they're not ma'akim. So therefore, those things you had to learn them from different sources. You couldn't have learned it up from this pasuk of B'yim Tzavos B'nei Yisrael lahakriv es karbaneim. Okay, how do you know lahashka is saita? How do you know that the drinking of the water of for the suspected eligible woman, that's all daytime? Because Asi Terra learn that from Xer Shava. Ksivach says, okay, so the Kohen's going to do for her this whole law. We talked about in the Torah, the procedures for the saita, so it says the word Torah. Ksivach says over there in Devar, based on the laws that he will show you, that he taught you, and on the judgment. Oh, so we see that the pasuk is comparing the word Torah to Mishpat. As you continue to of Chav Alpha Ben Aleph, not Mishpat B'Yayim, just like judgment is during the daytime. How do we know that? Rashi tells us from a pasuk in the Devarim Chav Aleph. It says V'hoyi B'Yayim Adchil Esbanav. It's going to be on the day that he bequeaths to his sons, which that whole parasha is talking about, teaching us about the halachas of din, which is what Nachal's inheritance is. As the Gemara teaches in Sanhedrin of Lamed Aleph base. So you say a mishpat has to be during the daytime, and the pasuk in that same pasuk of mishpat says the word Torah, and by Saita says the word Torah. Zavkan Bayim also over here, the drinking of the Mei Saita is also to be done all daytime. The Mishnah is taught the Olarifas Eglo, the decapitating of the calf, is also during the daytime, all day. How do we know that? So Amr de Ben Rabbi was taught in the Yeshiva Rabbi Yanai, because Kapar Ksiba Kakachim, by the Egla Rufa, mentions in the Torah the word Kaper la'amchi Yisrael ha'shapatisu, but the Kapalam, it says the word Kapara. So it's atonement for the the innocent murder of this person that no one knows who killed him. But one thing is, it says kapara, and we find the term by kachim. And just like we already established that kachim have to be done during the daytime, so too the egla arufa can be done all day. And the last item that we said that it's all day, it was latadas mitzayah, the purification of the mitzayah, which is with the birds and the cedar wood and the hyssop and the red thread. All those that are used in that procedure, that's kosher all daytime. How do we know? The Chassidus says, "Mazim Yikar says Zaysti Atoydas HaMitzayra." This should be the law of the Mitzayra b'Yom Taras in the day of his purification. So you see that it's during the daytime, the whole day, that the Mitzayra. So we brought the sources for the halachas of a Mishnah, at least of the first half, of regarding the things that are kosher during the daytime. It's going to be kosher all daytime, including that of the Mikra Megillah. Thank you to any time for us.